There's Drew and I. We've been married for 11 years this year.
Congratulations.
It's a good long time. We still love each other, so that's cool.
That's a big win.
And we have 2 children. We have Luke, who is 7, and Kai, who is 3. Then we have our furball, Doug the dog. And that's us.
And Doug is 11. So was Doug a right after marriage?
Doug was a spontaneous road trip impulse buy. Right after... When was it?
We were driving back from our open house, and I was asleep, and Kate was perusing the classified ads, and so we got him on the way home.
Yep, we literally stopped at
Kate
almost the
likes to live
halfway
dangerously.
point. Yeah,
Because if there's anything a newly married young couple needs
it's a puppy.
to figure out marriage is the stress.
Welcome back to the Go Shout Love podcast. My name is Seth Carnell, and today's episode surrounds a little girl named Kai. Kai is a sassy, tenacious, and musical little girl who will be celebrating her 4th birthday this month. She lives in Salt Lake City, Utah with her parents and her big brother Luke, and she loves singing, dancing, and playing pranks on people. We are talking with her parents, Kate and Drew, who will walk us through her diagnosis of MM, which is a disorder that primarily affects skeletal muscles, which are muscles that the body uses for movement and can also affect other organs and body systems as well. There's a lot that goes into this diagnosis, and Drew and Kate will walk us through her medical journey from beginning to now. They are very easy to talk to and even easier to listen to, and one thing you will learn right away in this episode is that they make you feel right at home. One other person that they talk about is Big Brother Luke, and how he sees his sister for who she really is and how proud of her he is. This is always one of my favorite topics to hear about with these families. The siblings of these kids are always impressive and overwhelmingly loving. In this conversation is Josh Veach, our executive director of Go Shout Love, along with Jessica Santo, our family relations director and talented photographer. Please take a second to rate, review, and share this podcast. We would love the feedback, and the families would love the shout out along with their story being heard. Here we go.
And we are in Salt Lake City or near Salt Lake City. Has this been home for you guys the entire 11 years, or where have you been before now?
We've kind of bounced around. We met in college, and so we got married down in Provo, Utah. And then I took a job out of college up in Seattle with a Big Four accounting firm. And so we were there for 2 years, and then we found our way back to Utah and worked here in Salt Lake City ever since.
I'm curious how you would describe Kate's relationship with the kids, individually with each kid.
Individually with each kid, I would say Kate is an emotional resource for Luke. She loves him more than I ever thought possible for someone to love someone, and is infinitely patient with him. And she is as caring and loving, and just hard to find the words to describe her relationship with Kai. It's a special, unique, pure love relationship.
It's really sweet.
Awesome. Kate, how would you describe Drew's relationship with the kids?
Drew is the fun parent. I would say that I'm the comfort parent and he's the fun parent. Drew has always held that role in our family dynamic to add levity to any situation and joy. And I mean, he's always the one that is requested at bedtime for reading bedtime stories, or our recent activity is like laser show and lightsaber wars at night. So Drew's always the one that's making sure that the fun happens. So when the kids want to do something fun, he's their person for that.
The chief fun officer of the house.
Yes.
That's great.
Nice. In prepping for our visit, Paige talked to you about like some ideas for podcast questions, and what was interesting is one of the notes that she gave is don't refer to her as sweet girl, because we see girls a lot and they have a great relationship with the family and they're like little princess, little sweet, but that is not how you describe Kai. So she's not the sweet. You kind of referred to her as the boss, and when we got here she was sitting at the end of the table, the head of the table, and so I wondered if that's kind of if that is
She's
a little,
a boss and a queen.
and a queen. She kind of maybe runs the house a little bit. Is that fair? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'd say that Kai is very much the stereotypical second child. She looks very dainty and sweet. Her movements, as you saw, everything she does seems very delicate, but her personality she's a force. And so she's very feisty and tenacious and has her own ideas and is willing to listen to yours, but ultimately she's like, no, actually I know best and we're going to do it my way. So we have a lot of big personalities in this house. So she doesn't necessarily run the show, but she fits right in with everyone's big opinions. So
you're learning these like leadership qualities of how to help her learn that it's her idea to do whatever needs to be done. And then
you have to get creative in that as well. We saw that with the photos this morning.
Absolutely. I feel like that's kind of our job, is to help Kai identify what she wants to do, and then we just get to facilitate it. How do we make it happen for her?
How else would you describe her personality or what she likes to do for fun?
What does Kai love to do for fun? She's obsessed with music and singing, and when she was really little, she had more sophisticated taste, and then the introduction to all the Disney, that we're in the Disney era, so she likes the princesses that have like power ballads, and she likes to perform and sing and dance.
What did you have her listening to, or what did she want to listen to before Disney entered her life?
Whatever you were listening to.
Yeah, she had her own little playlist, and it did have, a lot of fun songs, but she is fully immersed in Disney right now. One thing I would say to answer your question though earlier is like, she's so smart. Like, she wants to solve puzzles all day, and she wants to tinker and touch, and it's very apparent that she's going to be super bright. And so part of our job is helping her unleash that, right? And that's part of the challenge too.
Yeah, for sure. She's shown an interest so early in what I would consider like traditional academic things like numbers and letters, where we're not used to that because our son has always been more creative, and he wanted to do like crafts and less, structured learning. And she has Drew's brain, where she just wants to learn, and she is obsessed with books and puzzles and already wanting to like understand how letters come together to spell things. So she's very smart, which is intimidating for us.
And what was neat to see with her with her alphabet puzzle was she was signing every letter as she put in. I mean, that doesn't typically happen. So when a child that can do puzzles like that and sign each letter at 3 years old, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. She keeps us on her toes. How can we challenge her today in a way that's interesting to her?
Tell us a little bit about Kai's medical journey and where that started and how we got to where we are today.
So Kai was born May 2019. I had a typical pregnancy, no markers of anything. I carried her to full term, and it wasn't until I delivered her that we realized she needed some support, specifically respiratory support. And when she was born, she didn't really have any reflexes. So it was diagnosed as severe hypotonia, which, means muscle weakness. And it took us a while, a couple weeks in the NICU before we got her diagnosis, which is Nemelin rod myopathy. It's the ACTA1 gene mutation that causes it. And basically what it means is all of her muscle fibers didn't form correctly. And so she has severe muscle weakness head to toe. And so that manifested for her in she's not able to swallow. And so she needs support in feeding and support in breathing, because in order to take a breath, you use these muscles. They're called intercostal muscles, but basically your rib cage expands to allow your lungs to expand. And so she just needed pretty aggressive intervention. And that led to some of her procedures and 8 months in the hospital from birth. And then we finally got to bring her home in January of 2020. And she's been at home absolutely kicking butt ever since.
How many procedures in those 8 months?
She had 2. So we knew very early on that she would need the G tube because she was not able to eat by mouth. So the feeding tube directly into her stomach. And in the time period from when they made that decision, they transferred her to Primary Children's Hospital. And she'd been needing some respiratory support, but not like fully intubated respiratory support. So she was kind of in this unknown, how much is she getting what she needs? We don't quite know. And in that time, we received her diagnosis, and we really saw a pattern with others with the diagnosis at her severity, and a lot of them had trachs. And so we pushed for her to receive a trach at the same time that she got the G tube, because it just became apparent to us that she would need the trach some point in her life, and we might as well, when she's already going under anesthesia, just get them both at the same time.
Put her through it twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was those 2 at one time.
And it was like night and day difference. She came alive, and she was never lacking oxygen, but this really helped her to get the right pressure so that her body wasn't just, like in maintenance mode or staying alive mode. It allowed her to really develop. So it was the right decision.
I think we have a lot of families who fear the trach if they know that it's ahead in their future. What would you say to those parents that are in fear of that? Because you guys made such a early decision.
Yeah.
And I know that you and I chatted about how great it's been for her. So what would you say to them?
I'd say, first of all, that fear is extremely valid, because I don't think that anyone wants to put unnecessary, whether it's permanent or not, like ports into their child. I think it's very intimidating, especially the airway. The airway is such a fragile place to put something. So I'd say that fear is a normal and necessary response. And I would also say that if it is going to benefit your child in terms of supporting their breathing, then I feel like a lot of the fear and as a parent came from our ability to care for it, like the medical pressure that was then put on us, and this feeling of inadequacy. And we were lucky because Kai, as Drew said, did show an immediate improvement. And so it kind of was that, okay, this was the right choice. She already is more interactive. She's smiling for the first time, like she can breathe. I think the best part about a trach is that if you're not worried about breathing, kids can think about other things. If they're constantly in this space of struggling to breathe, they can't develop any other part of themselves because they're just breathing.
This thing that's supposed to be an involuntary action is taking all of her focus and all of her energy.
Yeah.
And how old was she when she went under that procedure?
2 months old.
2 months.
So she was so tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I was very concerned that, that would look weird or whatever. It's totally normal. And if by chance your child doesn't need it in the future, when they remove it, like that heals up pretty well, and it's not something that anyone would notice. So like that helped me understand, like, okay, this fear is kind of irrational.
Yeah.
This is going to only improve my child's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one can have a child in the NICU for an extended period of time, especially 8 months, and not be impacted as an individual. I'm sure not be impacted if I'm doing the math right, you guys are married 7 or 8 years at that time. It's going to have an impact on your marriage. Can you talk about what those 8 months were like, and how not necessarily her medical things that she faced, but the surrounding factors that were impacted by just 8 months in the hospital?
Yeah, it took a heavy toll on our family. I think we were able to get through it just by relying on each other, but we certainly felt disconnected at times because I was still working full time, but Kate was having to drive, 45 minutes to see Kai each way, and I was doing the same after work, and so we just had like no time, and it was hard, but we feel lucky that we were able to come out the other side of it, right? And
Yeah.
we feel infinitely more prepared to handle things at home because we spent a lot of time at the hospital. And yeah, it was hard on our relationship and our relationship with our son, but we've been able to make up for that, you know, in the 3 years since then by just having this light in our home.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. I think it pushed us to lean on our support systems. I think, you know, we've really been passionate about being very independent, and making sure that we weren't dependent on anyone else, like financially, and this just kind of gave us an opportunity to really lean on the people that wanted to show up for us. A lot of the support came in helping us with Luke because he didn't understand what was happening, and his patience for being in the hospital was pretty minimal. And so that was a big learning curve for us, just balancing all the dynamics that we had to. And it was hard. I'm not going to lie. I can't sugarcoat it. It was very hard. And it did. I feel like there were times where we were coexisting, you know, where it was literally like we were just handing Luke off to each other, and we didn't really always have the emotional capacity to show up for each other. But we tried. We tried, and I think there are just phases in life, regardless of your circumstance, where you just kind of like, you're just white knuckling and you're just getting through. And it doesn't only happen when you have a medically complex child. It can happen in any phase of life.
Yeah. Drew, you said that you guys made it through and made it through well, all things considered. If you had to go back, if there was something you wish you could have tweaked, something that's in your control maybe, is there anything, like if there's somebody that's starting a journey now and they have 7 months ahead of them, is there any advice that you would give to a dad on here's how you can do your best to be present and also fill the roles that that you fill in your family?
Yeah. I think something that Kate kind of touched on, you know, it's prominent in my mind that you have a support system, right? Like lean on your support system. If it's your neighbor, if it's your parents, if it's a cousin, you know, whoever, like people are there and people are good. They want to help each other out. Mm-hmm. Like you guys are a great example of that, right? People want to help and they want to be invested in a good cause. And what's a better cause than, you know, a sweet child that needs help and needs a support system to be built out. So lean on them. And if you don't have that, like, you know, reach out to a counselor or an advisor or something like that. Like there's plenty of resources, and just learn to use your resources.
Yeah, that's good. Kate, anything you would add from a mom's perspective?
I would also say we've been pretty proactive in pursuing therapy. I think we knew that when Kai came home, that we were going to need to do some healing to overcome that. And so we pursued that pretty early on. And I think it really helped us to transition from this phase of like survival and high alert to what we call our new normal. You know, it happened at the exact same time that the pandemic started. And so we were taking all of our medical trauma into a global pandemic, and it was a lot. But I think having like a therapist that we were consistently able to communicate with was very beneficial for just sorting through all of the feelings, because we rely on each other, but we just can't expect your spouse who's also in it to be able to carry you. You have to have, that's even, I think, the outside support. You have to make sure that you're not only putting it on each other.
Yeah. Is that something that friends or family advised you guys to do, or something you kind of pursued on your own to do the counseling?
I'd say we pursued it on our own, just because of different experiences with loved ones who have gone through really complicated things and seeing the benefits for them. Yeah. So I think I already believed in the power of therapy before, so that made it a little bit easier.
I asked just because it shows so much maturity to immediately coming out of that recognize we need this, and to do it quickly instead of trying to, like you said, white knuckle it and then transition into something that's normal.
Yeah.
And then have all these other issues compile.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where it's even more difficult to start to break through or work through those things. So yeah, just that seems like a lot of maturity to make that decision in that moment. So
thank you. I think that people always assume that, oh, someone needs therapy because like they're on the verge of divorce or they're the thing, but it's really, to me, it was maintenance. It's like, how do we wanted to get out of surviving and into thriving. And to me, healing from what we experienced was the most important part of making that happen.
Yeah. You need the therapy because you're human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very admirable.
Quality of life is a phrase that has different perceptions and is especially in families that we talk to and the rare with kids in the rare medical space. How do you guys define quality of life, and especially what that means for Kai? And then what adjustments do you make to give her the best life possible?
I think quality of life for Kai is Kai being able to do what Kai wants to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's 3. She wants to explore. She just wants to independently navigate her world. And so to me, quality of life is her being able to do that in whatever. And in our house, it means a lot of equipment to help her facilitate that kind of stuff. Because her cognition is not impacted. So it's very physical. So there's just a lot of wheelchairs and standers and adaptations that we make to facilitate her independence, because that's her personality. She wants to do new things. She wants to experience new things.
How does she let you know when she wants to do something new or different?
There's a lot of pointing,
And yelling.
a lot of interpretation. Yeah, some yelling. She's great about helping us know that she's unsatisfied. She's awesome.
That's a lot of the sassy behavior, you know. Yes, no. She's yes and no were definitely her first very clear words. And that's a lot of the way that we've incorporated sign is, you know, she knows her colors, she knows her letters. So if she's like pointing to something, she'll tell us like, I want the yellow thing, and she'll sign yellow. And then we're like, okay, you want the yellow book. She's signing book and yellow. And we're like looking on the bookshelf and kind of working together to navigate the communication component. So
I'm sure at times she can get frustrated too with that. I mean, you mentioned earlier that she wants to talk so badly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that could probably be a struggle for her. How does she show her frustration with that?
Tears. Yeah, she does this fist shaking mad sign. I'm mad. And also sad. Like she'll sign that she's sad. She's very good at articulating what emotion she's feeling. That's something we worked on pretty early. But yeah, a lot of tears. Yeah. You know, and we promote crying in this house. I think it's a very healthy outlet for people to just get those feelings out. You got to feel them. So
what's your hope for her for the future, for school, for friendships, for anything in her path?
I mean, she's already going to preschool, and it's a really cool preschool in the area where there are some kids with disabilities and there are normal kids, and there's a lot of emphasis on integration, and they do a really awesome job of helping the kids interact. And so she goes, and she's like the life of the party. All the kids want to help her and play with her. And so just, you know, like you guys have been saying, a normal lifestyle, right? Like quality of life in our eyes is just a typical life. That's what we want to provide her.
Yeah, just for her to be in a space where she fundamentally belongs. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think a lot of it is accessibility, but it's also just people that see her for who she is. The people that are aware and acknowledge the equipment, but they just see the person and where she's not only included, but that next level of like, you belong here. We want you here. We made these accommodations because we value your presence, and her preschool is exceptional at doing that. She fundamentally belongs, and her friends are obsessed with her, and it's very special.
Go ahead, you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
One. Thank you.
That iPad can't have that.
I know.
I was just gonna talk about him too. So
Yeah.
he's so sweet. Those freckles on his nose. When he crinkles that nose and those freckles pop out.
I know.
Holy.
He's a heartthrob. Whenever I pick him up from school, all the girls are like, "Bye, Luke. Bye, Luke. Bye, Luke."
Oh boy, you guys are in trouble.
I know. And
Well, speaking of someone who includes, your little boy Luke is a very proud big brother and lights up whenever she's around. What has he taught you about your journey with Kai?
it's a good question.
He fiercely defends her and fiercely includes her. He always wants people to know, hey, this is my sister. She has tubes. That was like his standard MO
When he was,
whenever
like,
we
3.
would be on a walk and he'd see literally anyone
Yeah.
that he didn't recognize. Hey, my name's Luke. This is my sister Kai. She has tubes. And it's just like,
matter
okay,
of
way to
fact.
break the ice. Like, let's just burst
Let's
through
dive
that
in.
barrier. So
Yeah.
he has been ultra inclusive, and it's exciting to see that. Like right now, he's, trying to decide what he wants to be when he grows up, and he's landed on a scientist lately, and it's like we feel like he really wants to help her. Like he sees that as like one of his missions in life, or one of his goals in life, is to like make her life better and improved. And it's exciting to see someone who's so passionate about their sibling like that, right?
And what a difference he'll be able to make to help other kids and adults understand his sister and her complexities.
Yeah.
He has such a innocent but powerful way of stating just obvious things that we might be too scared to ask. Like, she has tubes. He's
Yeah.
gonna just tell you about it.
Yeah, the way that he explains her equipment to his friends is my favorite because it's so simple. And he is always explaining like, oh, this is her trach and this is her ventilator and that's her suction machine. She needs it. It's just so cool because it's so matter of fact. And to me,
Not a big deal.
that's the way that we should all approach disability. This is
Absolutely.
just a normal part of the human existence. And I think kids are great examples of how to approach it so honestly and authentically.
His little book, so he created a book of a trip that we went on this last year, and like every picture is like him including Kai, and he's helping her to scuba dive. In some of the pictures it's like, yeah, in the future there'll be a suit or there'll be a ventilator so that she can scuba dive. It's like, well, maybe, but I'm not sure.
You're gonna build it.
Exactly, you're gonna be the engineer.
But what's
or the
cool
scientist
about
to build
that is he's already thinking in her future
Yeah.
what can be for her
Yeah.
that isn't now, but that like a world where she's even more, there's even a greater sense of her belonging than it is now, which is profound for a 7-year-old. That's awesome.
Amazing. I hope you save that forever. So when he does come up
yes.
with these
Yeah.
amazing inventions,
We can show him the first draft, the
That's
first
right.
prototype of
Prototype,
it.
yeah.
He was really into Star Wars and got fixated on the concept that Darth Vader uses a ventilator and it's built into his suit. And so he's like, we just have to make Kai a mech suit where there's a ventilator built in. And then she can walk around like a giant robot with a ventilator built in. He's like, they already did it in Star Wars. Like, why aren't we making this happen?
We're sending civilians into space. Let's get
Right.
let's get together.
Where's
What's going on?
Kai's-
Yeah.
Kai's robot suit. Let's so
man, that's
it would
awesome.
shock me if he didn't do something that facilitates some type of adaptive equipment in the future.
Yeah. What has your experience with the medical field overall been like? We hear horror stories and we hear, places that are really special because of the impact that's been made by a doctor or a nurse. And I'm just curious if there's any moments in your journey so far with Kai's medical history where this part of our story stands out, good or bad, because of this thing.
I'd say that we definitely haven't had any horror stories. We've had overall a very positive experience, but it's very humbling to have a diagnosis that's so rare that you hear the phrase from your doctors, oh, we've never heard of this before. It doesn't instill a lot of confidence
Sure.
when that's the first thing, or when you're meeting a new specialist and they want you to you as the parent to educate
Right.
about the diagnosis. Now we're used to it, but when she was tiny, I remember having this feeling of, wait, aren't you supposed to tell me
Yeah.
what the the plan is here? And so that was definitely a paradigm shift for me, to understand that it was our responsibility to be as educated as possible about the diagnosis specific care, so that we could advocate for her and make sure that her doctors knew what was the most relevant and appropriate things to support her. So that was a big eye-opening experience for me. I will say that her neurologist here is amazing. He is very knowledgeable about her diagnosis and proactive about learning about new treatment plans or ways that he can support. So we really, really have had a good experience with him. And our nurses she was in 3 different facilities, from one NICU to another NICU to a long-term acute care facility. And then our home health nurses are we call them Team Kai. They are everything to us, because I think the nurses in any type of medical environment are the ones that really get it. They're the ones that are doing the patient care. And
they're doing it quietly.
Yes.
They need recognition more, I feel. They do such an important job.
Yes.
Let's not step past, though, the fact that you are an incredible advocate and you fight with insurance and durable medical device providers, and you have a full-time job on your hand navigating the sometimes tricky world of insurance and advocating, providing for our daughter adequately. So
Thank you.
it's hard work, and to really help your kiddo, have the best life, that is an uphill battle that needs to be fought.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That was something that people talked about, but I didn't really understand until we came home. I joke that I'm Kai's secretary. That's my full-time job. I'm her caregiver secondary to being her secretary, because the amount of time that is spent just making sure that the right supplies come on time and, the therapies get approved, or, anything. Where did that missing package end up? It is a full-time job.
Legitimately a fulltime job.
Yeah. Which, because we have the nursing support that we have, I'm able to do that. And yeah, we have a good team.
I don't think we've ever talked to a family that doesn't have at least a handful of insurance battle stories. So you said it the nicest way I think anyone's ever said it as it relates to dealing with insurance.
It's because Kate's the one that handles all of that. If I was the one that was in the trenches, I'd have a lot more.
Probably have maybe stronger
4-letter words to say.
a stronger word to put towards that. I'm curious, Kate, how would you describe Drew now as opposed to the man that you married?
Ooh, that's hard for me to do without crying. I think the word I would use is evolution. I feel like when Drew and I got married, we were young and naive, and when we got married, I can't remember if it was my mom or someone said that Drew is the epitome of raw potential. Just like he has a heart of gold. And I think that it's the hard stuff in life that refines us. And I'm very, very grateful for the man and father that this phase has refined Drew into, because I'm definitely getting the best version of him that I've ever had now. And our kids are very lucky to have not only a fun dad, but someone who genuinely is so loving and kind and tender with them. So it's been a very beautiful thing to watch, and definitely a silver lining through the harder stuff.
Drew, did she tell you that quote of raw potential back then?
No, she did not tell me that, but I'm glad to hear that someone saw the potential in me.
But you don't get off the hook. What's the same question for you? How is Kate different than the woman you married?
Well, when I married Kate, when we first started dating, I thought she was perfect then, but I had no idea that she could be who she is now. She is incredible. She has made every single change or sacrifice that our family has needed, and I see someone that has the biggest heart that I've ever recognized in someone. You love everyone unconditionally, and I had no idea your power to influence people around you's lives. I don't know anyone that doesn't like you. I'm sure you know plenty of people that don't like me. I don't know anyone that doesn't love or gush over you, and so that speaks to how incredible of a woman you are, how much of a resource to people you are emotionally, and we're all better for it. Thank you.
Jeez, I don't know about you, but I want to go hug my husband. Jeez, you guys are the sweetest. You can tell that you guys have worked hard to keep this the way it is right now, and you guys are doing an amazing job.
Kate's
Something to
also a
look up
part-time
to.
therapist for me, so
Yeah.
I have 2 therapists. She's amazing at that.
That's great.
I don't have any other questions.
So neither. This has been an amazing
If
conversation.
there's any part of your story that we didn't touch on that you feel strongly you'd like to talk about, this is your chance.
What would you tell Mom who's her first night in the NICU and she has no idea what's about to be in her future? What would you tell her?
I would say that everything you're afraid of and everything that you're searching for, you have within you. Like, there's no one else that can do this job better than you. And you just have to dig deep and lean into the discomfort, lean into the hard, and allow it to mold you, because you are the only person that can be the best parent to this child. And it's the most overwhelming phase. I'd say that the beginning was the most raw phase for us. That's the only word I can think of, because you just feel like you've been stripped bare, and every insecurity, every trigger point in your marriage, everything is so raw. And I think you only can pass through it by leaning in and just doing it 1 minute at a time, 1 day at a time. And I remember thinking there's absolutely no way that I am capable of learning this medical stuff. And now it's my full-time language. And I have to remind myself that not everyone speaks the medical language, and how you are just capable of everything that you don't believe you are. And you just keep going and if you don't have an answer, find someone who does. Find your experts. We have found the most comfort and support from other families and individuals with the same or similar diagnosis to Kai. They have been the ones who have been our guides. And when you have either no diagnosis or a rare diagnosis and there's not a clear path, social media is a great way to find people that are doing what you're doing and can give you hope. It was like looking at other families' social media and seeing all the things that their kids were doing that gave us hope the day that we received the diagnosis and every day since. And now all we want to do is make sure that other people see the joy that this life has, that this is the good stuff. You know, you have to kind of learn and grow and get through some of the hard stuff, but it's such a full and better life than we could have imagined or created for ourselves.
At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kids. This month's Make Waves design is inspired by Kai, a sassy and tenacious girl who turns 4 years old this month. Kai models perfectly for us what it looks like to live a bold and unapologetic life and be yourself. Every purchase in May will be used to purchase a special needs flotation device so that Kai can participate in aquatherapy as well as swimming with her brother and family. Visit our website at goshout.love to support Kai through the purchase of a t-shirt, hat, tank top, hoodie, or other items.